they said if you flip, if you flip, well, you're going to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have your stomach pumped.
Behind the tuxedo and the iconic charm of James Bond lies a story marked by profound loss and quiet resilience. Pierce Brosnan's life has been shaped not only by silver screen triumphs, but by heartbreaking family tragedies that almost no spotlight could overshadow. What few realize is that Brosnan's journey from orphaned Irish boy to global star has been punctuated by the deaths of the two women who meant the most to him, his wife and daughter, both taken by the same cruel disease years apart. Early childhood and loss. Pierce Brosnan's story begins not with the glamour of Hollywood, but with an Irish boy marked early by absence and uncertainty. Born in Drogheda on May 16, 1953, Pierce never knew his father, Thomas, who left when he was just an infant. His mother, May, pursued a nursing career in London, returning home only once or twice a year, leaving young Pierce moving between relatives and unfamiliar houses. This pattern of separation and upheaval planted deep roots of longing that would shape his life. His earliest home was with his maternal grandparents, who provided a stable presence until their passing forced another shift. From there, Pierce lived with an aunt, an uncle, and eventually at a lodging house run by Eileen Riley, a place that felt bleak on paper but became a warm refuge filled with companionship and simple joys. The small iron bed beside a curtained window, the pinned-up newspaper blocking light, the laughter of children outside. These fragments formed his childhood's texture. Pierce later recalled that his grandfather's hand was the one he held most tightly, a symbol of the few constants amid change. A tiny slide projector his mother once brought lit up the ceiling with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, turning a humble room into a private cinema and offering escape from loneliness. Even when his mother was absent at Christmas, the worn boxing gloves she sent remained treasured, a silent reminder of enduring love, despite distance. At 11, Pierce finally rejoined his mother and her new husband, William Carmichael, settling in Britain where his world expanded yet still held challenges. The family's first outing took him to see Goldfinger, where Sean Connery's Bond shimmered on the big screen with cool control and effortless charm. That image of Bond captured something Pierce would later embody. But for now, London itself was less welcoming. He faced classmates who taunted him as Irish, a label he chose to own before it could be used against him. By 16, Pierce had left school clutching a portfolio of drawings and began training as a commercial illustrator. Art became a first language of expression even before acting entered the picture. His introduction to theater was almost accidental. A workshop exposing him to dance, mime, and performance revealed a craft that demanded presence over pedigree, offering a liberation from his restless past. He committed to 3 years of rigorous training at London's Drama Centre, mastering the discipline behind every gesture and line. Acting taught him to stand still when his life had been defined by movement, to speak clearly when so much had been left unsaid. Yet, liberation did not mean escape. Beyond the classroom walls waited rejection, small roles, and the grind of a career built on persistence. Pierce's early adulthood was marked by a quiet urgency to find both stability and expression. The boy shaped by absence now sought steadiness in his craft, a way to speak and be seen whole. Though the deepest wounds were yet to come, those childhood experiences carved the channels through which both grief and art would flow. This early foundation of loss and resilience set the stage for a career that would rise slowly, marked by moments of recognition and repeated challenges ahead. The path from those uncertain beginnings to early glimpses of success was neither fast nor easy, but it revealed a burgeoning talent determined to break through the shadows of his youth. Formative years and acting discovery. Pierce Brosnan's journey into acting was unexpected yet transformative. What began as exploration through a theater workshop soon became a calling that sparked a profound sense of liberation. Unlike his nomadic childhood, acting asked him to claim space, to be fully present and visible, a stark contrast to the boy who once moved between houses and relatives. His training at the Drama Centre in London was intense and exacting, a place where every movement, every line carried weight. Here, Pierce refined his craft, learning the discipline that would carry him through a tough industry. Acting became more than a skill. It was a refuge and a way to shape identity, allowing him to stand still and speak his truth. Long before fame, Pierce faced the realities of the profession: auditions without guarantees, rejection, and small roles that barely registered. After completing his training in 1975, he joined the Theatre Royal in York, appearing in productions like Wait Until Dark, where preparation and endurance were key to survival. The work was demanding and humbling, yet necessary to build his foundation. The turning point arrived with Tennessee Williams selecting him for the Red Devil Battery Sign in 1977, a role that garnered praise from the playwright himself with a terse but meaningful telegram: "Thank God for you, my dear boy." While this recognition didn't bring instant stardom, it propelled Pierce into London's critical circles and larger audiences. Film roles in the early 80s were brief but significant, placing him on sets with stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Bob Hoskins in The Mirror Cracked and The Long Good Friday. These opportunities edged him closer to steadier work and wider exposure, yet the breakthrough still awaited. Television became a critical platform for Pierce, offering him audience reach and a chance to shape a memorable persona. Shows like The Manyons of America expanded his visibility, and his Golden Globe nomination for Nancy Astor further raised his profile. Even then, the road was uneven, fleeting moments of recognition amid a sea of audition rooms. Acting for Pierce was no simple career choice. It was a process of self-discovery and resilience against unpredictable tides. Each role was a step toward not only professional success, but personal grounding, a way to rewrite the reluctant story of his youth. His persistence laid important groundwork for the defining role that would come with both opportunity and heartbreak, roles entwined with his own evolving life story. As his craft matured, the stage was set for a role that would define a generation and blur the lines between persona and man: the breakthrough of Remington Steele. Career beginnings and setbacks. Pierce Brosnan's early career was a testament to patience and hard-won progress, rather than overnight success. From modest stage parts to small film roles, he steadily built his resume while learning the demands of an unforgiving industry. Each job, no matter how brief, was a lesson in discipline, preparation, and navigating rejection. His 1975 theater work opened doors, but film roles in the early 80s were often fleeting. Cameos in productions like The Mirror Cracked placed him among giants, but gave little chance to shine. The gritty world of The Long Good Friday offered a harsher cinematic challenge, exposing him to the intensity required on screen. These parts, brief though they were, edged him closer to steady opportunities. Television soon emerged as a more reliable outlet. Early appearances expanded his reach beyond theater audiences, yet fame remained elusive. It was not until Remington Steele premiered in 1982 that Pierce found a role marrying charm, wit, and danger, traits that audiences connected with immediately. This show provided 5 seasons of stability and visibility, a platform unlike any he had known. Yet even this breakthrough came with complications. The tailored suits and charismatic control Brosnan brought inevitably invited comparisons to James Bond, planting the seed for a future role Pierce would covet intensely. The prospect of stepping into 007's shoes felt tantalizingly close. In 1986, Pierce was offered the Bond role, but for contractual reasons beyond his control, that opportunity slipped away, going instead to Timothy Dalton. The disappointment was deep. The phone call that revoked the chance became a defining moment he described simply as a blow. But he continued to work, taking on roles that broadened his range from thrillers like The Fourth Protocol to comedies such as Mrs. Doubtfire. Even without the Bond title, Pierce's career solidified his versatility, showing he could embody menace, romance, humor, and restraint. public imagination kept bringing Bond back near but not quite within reach, testing his resolve and patience. His persistence during this period would pay off dramatically years later. Behind the scenes, the unresolved hopes and personal tragedies created a complex weave of ambition and sorrow. As television fame turned into film recognition, the next chapter in his life awaited, not just professionally, but deeply personal. The door to Bond would open again, but just as the public saw his rise, Pierce faced the reality of family life and looming heartbreak, forever entwined with the man and the myth. The Remington Steele era. Pierce Brosnan's rise to international recognition came through the sophisticated charisma he brought to Remington Steele, a romantic detective series that premiered in 1982. Playing the mysterious con man who assumed the eponymous name, Brosnan captivated audiences with a mix of wit, charm, and subtle danger. His effortless chemistry with co-star Stephanie Zimbalist made the show memorable, sustaining it for 5 seasons and giving Brosnan a steady platform many actors only dream of. This role became a double-edged sword. Pierce was finally known and admired, yet the sharp suits and sleek demeanor inevitably invited comparisons to James Bond. Audiences began to whisper the possibility that he might one day don the iconic tuxedo, fueled by his cool elegance and poised confidence on screen. The connection was uncanny, and producers took notice. Brosnan was offered the chance to succeed Roger Moore as Bond in 1986. For 60 days, everything seemed aligned. NBC still held rights to revive Remington Steele, but Pierce had been assured the timelines wouldn't clash with Bond commitments. Then, just as he walked toward the beach with champagne for his wife Cassandra, the call came. The deal collapsed. NBC wanted more episodes, and Bond's producers refused to share their new 007 with a television series. Instead, Timothy Dalton became the new Bond. Brosnan said simply, that was a blow. Rather than retreat, Pierce returned to work with renewed focus, taking on roles that demanded more than charm. He portrayed a colder, more dangerous character opposite Michael Caine in The Fourth Protocol in 1987, and showed comedic range in Mrs. Doubtfire alongside Robin Williams in 1993. These roles demonstrated his versatility and resilience, proving he was more than the suave persona that Remington Steele had made famous. Though Bond remained just out of reach, Brosnan's steady career growth revealed his dedication to craft over celebrity. He meticulously balanced roles across genres, maturing into an actor with depth and nuance. Public fascination with Bond lingered, even as Pierce carved out a distinct path, fueled by determination and an unshakable sense of professionalism. The years of waiting and near misses tested more than his career. They pressed on his spirit. Yet in every performance, there was a quiet readiness, as if he knew his moment would come. Behind this was a man shaped not only by ambition, but by loss, both personal and professional, quietly carrying burdens beneath the polished exterior. Remington Steele was not just a television hit, it was the crucible that forged Pierce's public identity, intertwining his fate with the legend of James Bond. The show promised stardom, but also set the terms for the next chapter, one marked by both achievement and heartbreak. As the curtain closed on Remington Steele, the door to Bond would not remain shut forever. Eventually, fate would intertwine Pierce's personal journey with the role that haunts his legacy. Beneath his growing fame and the promise of Hollywood stardom lay a life rich in complex family ties, relationships that would anchor and challenge him far more than any role. Marriage to Cassandra Harris and family life. Before James Bond became Pierce Brosnan's defining role, his heart was deeply entwined with Cassandra Harris, a woman who brought steadiness to a life once marked by instability. They met in London in the mid-70s, and from that connection emerged a blended family, as Pierce adopted Cassandra's children, Charlotte and Christopher, after the death of their biological father. Their marriage in 1980 solidified a home filled with love, friendship, and the ordinary chaos of family life. Cassandra was more than a wife. She was a partner who understood the uncertainty of an actor's life and stood beside Pierce as his career gradually took shape. She had her own acting credits, including a role in For Your Eyes Only in 1981, connecting her to the world Pierce would soon inherit fully. Their home was a lively hub of children, visiting friends, and creative energy, all flowing beneath the shadow of hope and mounting challenges. In 1983, their son Sean was born, adding to a growing family that balanced ambition with care. Cassandra encouraged Pierce's work and offered critical support as he navigated the pressures of fame. Their shared life was one of mutual respect and determination, a rare oasis of stability for a man accustomed to change. Yet unseen specters were already at work. In 1987, while filming The Deceivers in India, Cassandra's health began to decline. An unusual fatigue and swelling led to a diagnosis back in London: ovarian cancer. The news changed the rhythm of their lives instantly, turning days into battles against uncertainty. Over the next 18 months, Cassandra endured 8 surgeries and rigorous chemotherapy, relentlessly questioning treatments and making defiant choices about her care. Pierce described himself as the quiet presence by her side, bearing witness to every test and whispering hope when strength waned. Their children, especially young Sean, adapted to the new reality. The boy's imaginative game of playing doctor was both a comforting ritual and a testament to family resilience. Even in illness, the household pulsed with life, children laughing, friends gathering, a fight to preserve everyday moments. Their Malibu place, somehow, turned into a kind of sanctuary during all that hardship. Even with exhaustion and hair loss, Cassandra still felt comfort in the steep land's quiet beauty, like a spot to walk and just sort of reignite the spirit. In that same stretch, Pierce came back to painting too, letting his fears and grief move through the canvas. The two of them met dwindling hope with courage, and even when they were silent, something stayed together, a bond that kept thickening as the choices got smaller. In her last days, Cassandra eased Pierce through his own anger and confusion, showing a love that was bigger than the pain itself. At her bedside, he tried to read prayers out loud, but his mouth just couldn't find the words. Her last clear phrase, "always an actor," sat there like a bittersweet goodbye, and it summed up that lifelong back and forth between performance and truth, the thing that quietly defined both of them. Cassandra died on December 28, 1991, one day after their 11th wedding anniversary. Pierce held their son close, and then gently told him, while grief cut deep valleys, he still sought counseling, and he learned to lean into vulnerability, so his children could understand what loss is like. Yet the family could stay connected. Cassandra's presence kept acting like a guiding light, not only for the man Pierce became, but even before the world ever started seeing him as Bond. As public acclaim grew and fate brought Pierce Brosnan the role of James Bond, his private world grappled with pain and resilience, a duality that would follow him through the brightest spotlights and darkest nights. Grief and loss of Cassandra and Charlotte. The devastating shadow of illness first fell heavily on Pierce Brosnan's family, with Cassandra's ovarian cancer diagnosis in 1987. As the disease progressed, it reshaped the daily rhythms of their lives and tested their emotional endurance. Over the next 18 months, Cassandra underwent 8 surgeries and relentless chemotherapy, facing each challenge with bravery and a fierce determination to maintain control over her life and family. Pierce was the quiet, steadfast presence, supporting her through every test and treatment, quietly absorbing the ever-shifting weight of hope and fear. Their children, especially young Sean, remained part of this fragile world, finding comfort in play that mirrored their harsh reality, as Sean would sometimes play doctor, a child's tender attempt to make sense of suffering. Despite the illness, their Malibu home echoed with life, laughter from the children, and the resilience of a family determined not to be consumed by despair. Even as Cassandra weakened physically, her spirit found refuge in simple pleasures. She took walks on their steep property, drawing strength from nature's steadiness. Meanwhile, Pierce found solace in his painting, transforming his anxiety and grief into art. Their battle unfolded not just in hospital corridors, but within the daily acts of living, deciding to buy the Malibu home, holding each other close, and carving moments of peace amid turmoil. As treatments grew less effective, silence settled between Cassandra and Pierce. A shared space waited with unspoken fears. 1 week before her final hospital stay, she comforted him at a time when confusion and anger threatened to overwhelm him. At the bedside, Pierce struggled to read the prayers he had memorized, faltering under the enormity of the moment. Cassandra's last clear words, "always an actor," lingered, both a tender farewell and a nod to the life they had shared behind the scenes. On December 28, 1991, Cassandra died, just 1 day after their 11th wedding anniversary. Pierce held their son Sean in his arms to share the heartbreaking news. The boy's tears never fell, but his quiet response that she was no longer in pain underscored the complex bond between grief and acceptance within their family. Pierce sought counseling for himself and his children, determined to let them see his vulnerability while providing a steady anchor to navigate the loss. 4 months later, Pierce kind of sat with it all and noticed Cassandra still hanging around inside him, like she never really left. She was woven into his whole identity way before the world started naming him Bond. But grief didn't stop there. It reached further, and then ovarian cancer came back. Again, this time hitting close family as well. His daughter Charlotte, whom he had taken in after Cassandra's death.
That kind of sorrow becomes an indelible part of your psyche. I held the generous, strong, beautiful hand of my first wife, Cassie, as ovarian cancer took her life much too soon.
Got the same cruel diagnosis almost 22 years later. It sent Pierce right back into that painful loop of loss, like nothing had healed. Charlotte's illness lasted 3 years. During that time, she carried herself with strength, grace, and dignity, even while everything kept pulling at her. She stayed in all the roles she had: mother, partner, daughter, sister, finding some balance between treatments and the everyday rhythms of family life. When the family announced her passing in June 2013, they said she showed courage and real human kindness through the whole ordeal. And just weeks before she died, Charlotte married her longtime partner, Alex. It happened surrounded by family, a quiet kind of celebration of love, even with the lingering shadows still there. After Charlotte's death, the family fractured again.
That kind of sorrow becomes an indelible part of your psyche. Wonderful daughter Charlotte, before she too died from this wretched inherited disease.
The young children were left without their mother, and their grieving father had to face this haunting repetition. Then, at the 2014 Stand Up to Cancer broadcast, Pierce spoke openly, holding the hands of the 2 women he loved most in memory. First Cassandra, then Charlotte. In that moment, it was clear how deep a father's struggle can go when the same disease takes 2 pieces of your world, and how resolve can show up anyway, still reaching for hope beyond heartbreak. Even as grief gnawed at the edges of his life, Pierce found new ways to heal and build, nurturing love that honored the past while embracing the future. New Beginnings with Keely Shea Smith. In 1994, 3 years after Cassandra's death, and before GoldenEye made him Bond, Pierce Brosnan met Keely Shea Smith in Cabo San Lucas. She was working as a journalist, and their meeting sparked a relationship rooted not in erasing past losses, but in creating a life that could contain both remembrance and renewal. Keely entered Pierce's world as a partner who never competed with his history, but instead complemented it. Their bond was built on a foundation of friendship, shared values, and mutual respect rather than fairy tale rescue. Keeley brought her own passions into the partnership: environmental work, filmmaking, and advocacy, which intertwined naturally with Pierce's evolving public role. Together, they engaged in campaigns to protect oceans, wildlife, and threatened habitats, notably opposing projects that endangered the gray whale sanctuary at Laguna San Ignacio and industrial developments off California's coast. Marriage came on August 4, 2001, at Ballintubber Abbey in County Mayo, Ireland, a ceremony that blended histories, including Cassandra's memory and Pierce's existing children, with the family they were building together. Their sons, Dylan, born in 1997, and Paris in 2001, grew up surrounded by a household embracing both the past and the present. This blended family refrained from replacing what was lost, instead making room for continuity, new traditions, and ordinary joys. Keeley described their marriage simply as being best friends, a phrase carrying more depth than dramatic notions of salvation or destiny. Their relationship emerged from daily decisions to face challenges, to support creative endeavors, and to choose each other again and again over the years. This steady commitment fostered a home both stable and real, sustained through presence rather than perfection. Despite the profound losses they endured, the family continued living together, embracing grief as part of their shared experience rather than a barrier to connection. Dylan and Paris flourished between Malibu and Hawaii, developing their own creative paths as Pierce and Keeley pursued acting, painting, journalism, and filmmaking respectively. Their household reflected resilience and renewal, a sanctuary neither untouched by sorrow nor defined by it. Keeley's role was never to replace, but to accompany. She became a partner in advocacy, parenting, and life's milestones, helping anchor Pierce amid the dual tides of remembrance and forward motion. Photographs over decades capture not a wounded man being rescued, but a family honoring those who had passed while nurturing those growing alongside. This new chapter was not a closing of a door, but the widening of a space where love could hold both joy and loss. The years deepened their bond as they marked anniversaries, raised children, and maintained the delicate balance of memory and living. In doing so, Pierce built the family steadiness he had long sought. As Pierce continued returning to film and advocacy, this life with Keeley grounded him, offering a partnership resilient enough to embrace both what had been lost and what was yet to come. Life after Bond and legacy. Pierce Brosnan's tenure as James Bond ended without the fanfare many might expect. In 2004, while filming After the Sunset in the Bahamas, Pierce received a sudden call from his agents. Negotiations to continue as Bond had stopped. Producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson confirmed the series was moving in a new direction. There was no grand farewell, no final curtain call, just a quiet goodbye. For a man who had embodied the role for a decade, the ending left a void and a lingering sense of unfinished business. Yet Pierce's departure from 007 did not signal an end to his artistic journey. Instead, it opened new doors. He founded Irish Dreamtime, a production company that allowed him to shape projects on his own terms, far from the constraints of Bond's polished image. Taking on the role of Julian Noble in The Matador in 2006, Pierce portrayed a weary, unstable contract slayer whose vulnerability contrasted sharply with the flawless agent audiences had known. This role earned him a Golden Globe nomination and demonstrated his willingness to embrace complexity and imperfection. Diverse choices followed. Mamma Mia showcased him alongside Meryl Streep in a musical full of laughter and family warmth, a departure from espionage, but one that further revealed his range. Later, The November Man allowed Pierce to revisit spy thrillers with fresh eyes, crafting a character without the shadow of 007. These projects marked a conscious effort to break free from the Bond silhouette, rather than being trapped by it. Public discussions and interviews reflected his acceptance of this transition. Pierce neither denied the disappointment nor diminished his successor, Daniel Craig. Rather, he framed Bond as one chapter among many, already woven into a broader tapestry that included drama, comedy, producing, and painting. His resilience shone through, embracing new creative challenges with enthusiasm and openness. Despite the shift, the Bond legacy continued to follow him. Premieres, fan expectations, and media inquiries remained constant. Yet Pierce never allowed the role to define or confine his identity. His artistry matured beyond the spy's tuxedo, revealing layers built through life's joys and hardships. He proved that losing the tuxedo did not mean losing the performer. Family remained central alongside his career. The complexities of relationships with his sons, Christopher, Sean, Dylan, and Paris, including times of distance and reunion, underscored the humanity beneath celebrity. Pierce acknowledged limits in his role as a parent, at times stepping back when necessary while holding on to hope and love. Those connections endured quietly, away from the cameras and headlines. Philanthropy and advocacy became another vital focus. Since 2001, Pierce has served as an ambassador for UNICEF Ireland, lending his voice to children's causes. After the losses of Cassandra and Charlotte to ovarian cancer, he started pushing for research efforts, and he showed up at events like Stand Up to Cancer in 2014. Environmental activism alongside Keely Shea Smith kind of underscored their mutual dedication to protecting the planet for the next generations. At 73, Pierce Brosnan keeps acting, painting, and creating. New roles in series like Mobland and films such as Giant show an artist evolving with time, blending memories from the past with whatever creativity is still arriving. Surrounded by family, including children and grandchildren, he keeps close the people who were lost, even while he still leans into life's possibilities. The man behind that iconic spy is a father, husband, artist, and advocate. Complicated, enduring, deeply human, all at once. The image of Pierce Brosnan now spreads past the tuxedo and the gadgets too. It's shaped by the hands he held in moments of profound love and loss. The grandfather, the devoted husband to Cassandra, the father to Charlotte and his sons. His story is resilience, creativity, and this quiet bravery to carry grief while still stepping forward before a canvas and a camera. Pierce Brosnan's journey is a powerful reminder that behind the fame lies a man shaped by love, loss, and resilience. His story challenges us to see strength not just in triumph, but in endurance through heartbreak. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives behind the legend.